much enjoyed the Bossman Show with John Beckler. As promised, we're joined by Xavier, Musketeers head coach, off to a 10-0 start this year, best start in Xavier history. Coach Chris Mack on the Bossman Show. Coach Mack, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, JR. I appreciate you having me.
You're welcome, Coach. And, Coach, I got to ask you, Coach, I wish you a 10-0 start this year. What has been the key factors in your mind to your team's hot start this year?
Well, I think, number one, we have very talented players. I think we have, guys that came into the year, really expecting a lot of themselves. I don't know necessarily how many people out there that follow college basketball maybe had us as one of the better teams in the country. We certainly weren't on a lot of top 25 preseason polls. And, the way we finished off the year a year ago, I think we had a few players that, felt a little bit slighted. And, of course, being slighted doesn't really matter if you don't go out and prove it. I think so far, through 10 games, our guys have gone into each and every game with something to prove and playing with a chip on their shoulder. And, the results have been great. But if we don't continue to play with that same fury and that same chip on our shoulder, then the results will not continue to be the same.
Coach, and that's an interesting point about the last year's Sweet 16 run and how it kind of has bled into this season. And as you mentioned, your guys maybe didn't get a lot of respect in the preseason polls, but, man, they're sure earning it now with the way that they played out of the gate. Is there any specific thing that you can put your finger on as far as how your staff was able to take last year's success and carry it into the beginning of this season?
Well, I really felt like returning, we had a very talented offensive team. We relied on a few freshmen last year that, let's face it, freshmen in almost every program make the biggest leap from that year to the sophomore year. And guys like, J.P. McCura, certainly Trayvon Blewett, Sean O'Mara, guys that were going to be valuable players for us this year have really made that jump. But I think the biggest thing that's the difference between last year's team and this year's team is we're just simply much better on the defensive end. And a year ago, we played defense. We certainly got better as the year progressed, and we were playing pretty well down the stretch. But from day one of this year's team, we've been much improved defensively. And when we get out in transition, we get stops on the defensive end, we can turn it into offense. I think we're a difficult team to contain. And a year ago, we just took the ball out of the net too many times after the other team finished that possession.
And another thing, Coach, that we have talked to you about in the past when you've been on the show are some of the rules changes that took effect this season. So Just to circle back on that, the first 10 games of this season, do you feel like the new rules have resulted in the impact that the Rules Committee wanted them to have? And do you feel like they've affected you and your team in any way?
Well, I do think they've given college basketball the results that the Rules Committee wanted in the first place. They wanted a game with more possessions. They wanted a game with higher scoring. And the facts are the facts. And that's what's happened. I would tell you that I think our team, specifically on the offensive end, has taken advantage, of the new rules. We've made, if you can believe the statistic, we've made more free throws in games than our opponents have even attempted. And it's because of our ability to get to the foul line, to be able to put pressure on the rim, to drive the ball. It's gotten us to the foul line, and we have a very, very good free throw shooting team. So we've tried to take advantage of the rules, the hand checking, the less physicality across the lane. And, I think it's been good for the game. It's been a period of adjustment for every team, I think, on both ends of the floor. But one I think that fans, coaches, players have all really made an adjustment to in the beginning of the year so far.
And, Coach, just look ahead to conference play after you play Auburn and Wake Forest. Do you feel like that your conference, the biggest conference, is from top to bottom, if not the best conference in college basketball this year?
I do, and I say this simply because I think teams that, are generally going to finish 8, 9, and 10, they're going to have players on their team that you'd trade your right arm in a heartbeat for. They also have tremendous home court advantages. We played Creighton a year ago on the road. They came in last place in our league, and it was a nail-biter. Creighton actually came to our building, and one of our only 3 losses at home last year was to Creighton. They ended up finishing last. They lost 7 games by, I think, 1 possession. So every single night you're in a dogfight. And, again, I think the teams at the top of the league we'll compete against any teams in the country on any given night.
And, Coach, come up for you Saturday. You play Auburn. Played a tough game in Middle Tennessee. A friend of the show, Kermit Davis, talked about that game before they played that game on the show. Without giving away your game plan, Coach, what have you and your staff been seeing from Auburn on the film that might give you guys a little trouble Saturday? What you have to be prepared for when you see Bruce Pearl and the Tigers come into to your arena this weekend?
Well, I think it starts with our game at Auburn a year ago. You know, we had those guys on the ropes. We had them down 15 in their own building, and, you know, we completely fell apart. And season's a lifetime. You know, you learn a lot of things about your team and where it needs to progress and maybe strengths and weaknesses as the year goes on. But you know, we really learned a whole lot about our team a year ago. And that game, I think, changed our team's mindset of being able to close games and finish games. And it's one we would love to have back. We can't. We obviously get a new opportunity to play them in our arena this Saturday. And we're going to have to take care of the basketball. They do a great job of turning teams over, especially when you're inbounding, whether it's full court or underneath your own basket. Sort of a trademark of Bruce Pearl teams. And I know this. They got some talented players. They play really well in transition. They got a kid named Kareem Canny, who the rest of the country may not know, but he's a sophomore point guard that shoots it as well as any player will play all year. So we've got our hands full. We're excited to play. It's going to be a big challenge.
Coach, I'm going to switch it up a little bit on you here and talk a little NFL football. You know, the Queen City took a hit when Andy Dalton went down recently. So, you know, what do you think about A.J. McCarron? Do you think he can hold the fort down until Andy gets back? And give me an overall feeling about the Bengals that you have going forward.
Well, I'd say number one, the fact that the Bengals are playing three games in their last three regular season games against backup quarterbacks certainly helps. You know, we're not playing any team with their original starting quarterback. And so I'd like to think that the Bengals could finish out strong with those 3 games. Now, who knows if Dalton will be able to get back for the playoffs. But, you know, I've got some friends down there within the organization. They're really high on A.J. McCarron. And for that guy to come in the middle of the first quarter against the Pittsburgh Steelers with no reps during practice with the first team and throw for 280 yards, I think you give him a week like he's had this week to sort of keep it simple, throw the ball down the field to some talented receivers. They get the running game going. I think they're going to be fine. But, you know, it's disappointing because Dalton's had such a tremendous year. A lot of people were down on him, especially come playoff time. But, you know, he's done some things that not many other quarterbacks have ever done in this league in his first 5 years. So hopefully he gets back and he's able to join a team that he's really put together here the last 2 seasons.
Well, Coach Mack, I hope AJ does better than my backup QB, Matt Castle's doing for me at the Cowboys. I've had weed this year in Castle. And I tell you what, Coach, if any Cowboy fan says Ramon needs to go, they are now wishing they had to retract those statements because seeing what we saw with weed in Castle, Coach, woo-wee, it gives you a big head spin.
It's not a stable life to be relying on a backup quarterback in the NFL. It just shows how tough of a position and how hard of a job that is at that level to really come in and be able to be successful. I mean, you see it time after time. Those guys usually don't do well in the long term.
Yeah, well, I just want to throw it out there, Coach. I'm a Browns fan, so my life has been extremely unstable for the past 17 years.
I feel bad for you. That's a tough hit right there.
Hey, listen. At least I got the Musketeers to look forward to on the weekends. You know, 10-0 start, so that makes me happy, right?
There you go.
Well, Coach Mack, we thank you for your time this evening, Coach, and good luck Saturday against the Tigers. We'll be looking forward to talking to you again in conference play, Coach.
Guys, thanks for having me.
You're welcome, Coach. Thank you so much. Folks, that was Xavier Musketeers head coach. It's back on the Bossman Show. Coming up next, more Bossman Show with J.R. and John after the break.